Tamar, so wonderful to have you here. We go way back, but for the benefit of everyone watching at home, please tell us your name and what you do these days.
Tamar Yeshoshua. I lead product and technology at Glean.
And you have been at a great set of companies before this. What does that evolution look like?
So prior to being at Glean, I was a chief product officer at Slack. During the pre-IPO, through the IPO, and the acquisition. It was a lot of fun. Before Slack, I was at Google, where I worked on Google Search, and before Google was at Amazon, and then was at some startups that you've never heard of.
I didn't know you were at Amazon before Google.
I was.
Fun. In Seattle or here?
I was at A9, which was the search arm of Google, so I was there from 2004 to 2010.
Right as Amazon was digging out of that post-IPO hole.
Exactly. I got when they were like, they hadn't moved at all, and then it flew.
Congratulations.
Amazing.
So a question that we are asking everyone today is, when you look at who are the greatest product leaders and companies that have done product development well over the years, what are some companies that you look up to as the greatest examples?
So the way I think of it is, I think of different companies are really good at different things. So the way I look at founders is, founders spike usually in an area, and you want to work at a company where a founder spikes in an area that is important to you and you think is important to the product or the business. So Google really spiked in technology. They hired the best engineers. They really built a technologically complex product in a market that needed it. So you have to match. Sometimes you go overboard on the technology when it's actually not what's going to win. So I think Google won for technology. Amazon won by really caring about adding value to its customers. So Bezos, of all the people I've ever been able to work with, since I was at Amazon in the early days, Bezos stands out among everyone else in just every dimension. He was really incredible. Attention to detail, sheer intellectual capacity, strategy, even technical depth. But I would say that that's what Amazon really was exceptional at, was customer centricity and bringing value. Slack, I think, was exceptional at craft and product craft. So each of these companies brought something different to the table, and Microsoft is distribution. And
that has nothing to do with product development. That feels like a little sleight of hand. I asked you who's good at product development, and you told me Microsoft's good at distribution.
But it's a product strategy in how they bundled and what they did, and I think it's really, you have to respect people for what they're good at, and you need to make sure that what you're doing aligns with what is needed. So that's kind of what I think about at Glean. Where we spike is at the areas that we need to be successful.
So for folks who are less familiar, what is Glean and what are you up to these days?
So Glean is a work AI platform. So we build tools to make sure that you can find information that you need at work, you can summarize it, you can act on it, and you can build apps on top of it. So we started as enterprise search, using AI techniques from 2019 to build enterprise search, because we were a lot of early Google people. And then when GPT-3 came out, added an AI interface. So we have a chat interface, just like you can chat with ChatGPT about a question around the world. You can chat with Glean about a question in your company, which is really valuable because it's way easier to find information. And you can also build apps on top of our platform and take action.
So interesting, because enterprise search has been this white whale for such a long time. I just want to off against.
It was Google's first business model, right? Was they're going to sell appliances for enterprise
Google
search.
Mini.
Yeah.
But even in this modern era, in this sort of post API, RESTful APIs everywhere, OAuth era, the dream has been, I just want to connect all the things that I have access to, and then have a nice little search box, and it'll work for me. 100 people have tried that, and 100 people have failed. It feels like this AI moment, it kind of changes everything.
Totally. When the founder, Aaron Jane, went to VCs and said, I want to build enterprise search, he was the co-founder of Rubrik, which had been really successful, early engineer at Google. They all said, we will invest in you, but please don't do enterprise search. But he did it anyway, because he felt that it was a problem that needed to be solved. just like you say, a lot of people have tried it, hadn't worked. Why did it work for Glean? APIs to all of the enterprise products. As you said, they had already started, but they weren't really ubiquitous. I was at Google when we had Google Takeout, which was there was the regulatory action that we had to make sure it was the customer's data. You have to have APIs, so every product at Google had to add an API. So it took a while to get there where there really were APIs to everything. That's one. And two, the technology stack. So we were using ML for search, for enterprise search in the beginning. We're using the BERT models from Google, using vector databases to do hybrid search with semantic search and keyword-based search. So we finally had the signals and the ranking expertise to actually build enterprise search that worked. And that's kind of what changed because the technology stack was better. And then you add on the ability to ask a question in natural language, like what's the status of this project? When's it going to launch? And it'll look through all your Slack channels and look through all the Jira to find out what issues there are. And so you're not just wading through information.
Fascinating.
That's amazing. Google Takeout, wow. What a delightfully named product.
Google's regulatory compliance just doesn't have the same ring to it.
Google had a real whimsy to it back in the day. Still does to a certain extent.
It still does.
Yeah.
I'm still a Google fan.
Yeah.
Who's not? We all use
right.
Google
We
1,000
use it
times
all
a
the
day,
time.
and all of our email and all of course, yeah.
Some of the most incredible consumer surplus, and it's not that Google doesn't also capture a huge amount of value, but like Google, free to the world, like amazing.
It's amazing.
It was wonderful to work on a product that was free everywhere in the world and really had an impact everywhere.
And just makes everyone's life better to use it. I mean, there's lots of debate out in the world around, oh, is this net positive or net negative? Information
I
at
can't
your
imagine any
fingertips,
debate.
yeah, organizing the world's information, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, totally agree.
So what muscles are you dusting off going from search to search over, a 15-year span? That it's obviously very different, and we're in the AI era and it's enterprise search, but what aha moments are sort of coming back to you now that you're at Glean?
How you have to eval products. Because search eval is different, and it's all statistical, and then now you add on LLMs, and figuring out, taking what you know from before of evaluating search, and then saying, okay, now you add on this thing that's non-deterministic and is using a new technology stack, and so how do you adapt that? It's a really interesting problem, and also then how do you get customers comfortable with, it looks like search, feels like search, but so much more powerful, and how do you get them to understand, well, we taught them how to use a query for years. Google, people didn't know how to query when Google first came out. And
Right,
then
there was keyword search before there was full query search.
Yeah. And so then how do you take that same muscle, but teach people how to prompt?
And when you say eval, are you talking about how do we know if the changes we're making are making the product better?
Yeah.
What are the primary KPIs you use to figure out is this change better or a regression?
So we look at the correctness of the answer, we look at the completeness of the answer, and is it grounded? Those are some of our, we use LLM as a judge to judge if the results are good.
Oh, that's fun. It's almost like an adversarial. You have an LLM to help you evaluate if you plug in a new model underneath.
I like to think of it as a friend to help.
Sure. I mean, adversarial in the academic sense.
Yes. Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's AI is very good at evaluating the output of AI.
Kind of a...
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's very cool.
I'm curious, what do you mean by grounded in the eval criteria?
That the result can be found in a document.
Okay. There's like a source of truth.
That it is sourced, and you can actually track it back that it's sourced.
Love it. Well, speaking of that, a question that we've been asking everybody today that is sort of in the same vein is there a moment, could be from Glean, could be from some of your past experience in your career, where seeing data about a product, about a decision has completely changed your mind?
There's so many times where data has changed my mind. I think the worst are when you launch something and you look at the data and nobody's using it, and that just gets you depressed. But if I think of
Maybe revise it to change your mind in a positive way.
yes, but if I think about a real aha moment, I was working on international search for a long time, and we would look at the metrics of search latency, and all the metrics looked good. Like search is super fast, but search has a lot of users, so it's hard, you're not slicing the data in the right way, and you're not necessarily looking at the right anomalies. And we were looking at it for a while and like, why was search in India so much worse than search anywhere else? And we finally sliced the data by latency in India, and we found that two things, like the connectivity was just so much worse, and the web pages were so large that they took so long to load that nobody wanted to wait for them to load because the connectivity was so bad. So once you sliced it in that right way, we're like, oh my God, this isn't working. And also our APK was just too big. Like the Google search app was too large for these phones. So all these things, once we started honing in, we got all these insights that we changed how we were operating in India.
It's like the axiom that averages are useless, because averages are meant to represent a distribution, but actually what they do is hide all the interesting things about the distribution and try to put it into one number, and almost no one experiences that one number. Everyone lies somewhere else on the distribution. Exactly.
And then when you have so many users like Google does, even if you slice it, you're not going to get just a locale. And then it was just, the insights were very helpful.
Well, as we close things out here with you and for the days, great day we've had here at the Significance Summit, we wanted to ask you one more question, which is, you've had such an illustrious career across so many different companies. What's some advice that you would have maybe for your younger self, or that when people come to you and they ask for career advice, what do you usually tell them?
The thing that I always tell people is you should follow people, because you're spending your day working with people. So you want to make sure you're working with people you want to be around, but you also want to work with people who are the best at what they do. So you want to find people who are the best at something that you want to learn and you want to be good at, and then go there. And it might be hard, and it might not be the best company, but that's what I always advise people to do, because it's so hard to know what company is going to be successful. Like my first two startups that I was at were not successful, but I learned so much, and it changed the trajectory of my career. And I made the decision to leave Google and go to Slack 100% because I wanted to work with Stuart Butterfield. That was the only reason. It wasn't because I thought it was going to be successful or the domain or anything. It's like, he is an amazing product thinker, and I want to learn from him.
Amazing. Did you go there when it was still the game, or after?
No, I went much later. That would have been a lot of fun.
That would have been fun. But to your point, like, nobody knew Stuart was going to be successful. They thought he'd be successful at the game. He ended up becoming successful at Slack, but following him was the right thing to do.
Exactly. And some people are like, you're going to work at a chat app from Google? And yeah, so sometimes I did unconventional things in my career, took risks that didn't seem risky to me, but to other people felt risky.
It's so funny hearing that, because thinking about the Google early days, if you were at Microsoft and you went to work at Google, you're going to work at a web company that does search and not Microsoft. And technology just repeats itself over and over and over through the generations.
It's hard to know what's going to happen, so follow things that are really interesting to you and that you want to learn.
Love it. Tamar, thank you.
Thank you for having me.